The air inside the command center felt heavier than usual, thick with the hum of machines, the low murmur of urgent voices, and something else, something unspoken. It was the kind of silence that didn't come from calm, but from the edge of something breaking. Screens flickered with maps of the Persian Gulf, blinking red markers pulsing like warning heartbeats. Commander Daniel Reeves stood rigid, eyes locked on the largest screen. He had spent 23 years in the U.S. Navy, most of them at sea, chasing storms both natural and man-made, but tonight felt different. This wasn't just another standoff. This felt personal. "Sir, new transmission," a young officer said, his voice just barely steady. Reeves didn't respond immediately. He already knew what it would be. Across the world in Tehran, General Armin Vahidi sat in a dimly lit office, fingers steepled under his chin. He was not a man prone to anger, at least not outwardly. Those who worked with him knew his calm was more dangerous than any outburst. A veteran of decades of tension, loss, and strategy, Vahidi carried the weight of a nation's pride on his shoulders. But beneath the composed exterior, there was something deeper, a quiet exhaustion and a determination that had hardened into resolve. The talks had failed. Weeks of negotiations, carefully arranged, cautiously hopeful, had collapsed in a matter of hours. Words that were meant to build bridges had instead burned them. Vahidi leaned forward slightly as his aide entered. "They've repositioned additional naval assets," the aide said. A pause. "Of course they have," Vahidi replied softly. But inside something shifted, not fear, not panic, something colder, back in the Gulf aboard a U.S. destroyer, slicing through dark waters. Lieutenant Sarah Malik stared at the horizon. The sea was calm, deceptively so, reflecting the faint glow of distant lights. She had joined the Navy for adventure, for purpose, but mostly to prove something to herself. As the daughter of immigrants, she had grown up between worlds, always trying to belong fully to one. Now standing on that deck, she felt the weight of both. Her radio crackled. "Lieutenant Malik, report to the bridge." She exhaled slowly, steadying herself. This was it, whatever it was. The tension wasn't just military, it was human. Far away, in a small apartment in Karachi, journalist Adil Khan stared at his laptop screen, fingers hovering above the keyboard. He had been tracking the negotiations for weeks, sensing a story beneath the surface. Something wasn't right, he had told his editor. Something bigger was brewing. Now, as alerts poured in, his instincts screamed. Failed talks, escalating rhetoric, naval movements. He whispered the words aloud, piecing together a narrative that felt too dangerous to ignore. His phone buzzed. A message from a source. This isn't just posturing anymore. Adil leaned back, heart pounding. He had covered conflicts before, but this felt closer. Not geographically, but emotionally, like the world was holding its breath. Back in Washington, policy advisor Emily Carter sat alone in her office long after most lights had gone out. She had been part of the negotiation team, one of the voices pushing for compromise, for understanding. Now she stared at a single line in the report, talks terminated without agreement. She closed her eyes. Where did we lose them? She whispered to herself. Her journey into diplomacy had been driven by a belief that words could prevent war. That dialogue, no matter how difficult, was always better than silence. But tonight, that belief felt fragile. The first turning point came quietly. A routine patrol vessel reported an unidentified presence in the water. Nothing confirmed, nothing aggressive. But in a region already on edge, even ambiguity could ignite something larger. Commander Reeves was informed within seconds. Could be nothing, one officer suggested. Reeves shook his head slightly. Out here, nothing doesn't exist. Orders were given. Surveillance intensified. Every movement, every signal scrutinized. Meanwhile, in Tehran, General Vahidi received the same report from a different angle. They're probing. His aide said. Vahidi didn't respond immediately. Instead, he stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. Lights stretched endlessly, each one a life, a story, a future, or they're waiting, he said finally. The second turning point came not from a missile or a ship, but from a voice, a recorded message broadcast across international channels. Calm, measured, but unmistakably firm. We will not be threatened, the voice declared. Our response will match the challenge. The words spread like wildfire. In the command center, Reeves listened in silence. Around him, tension sharpened. They're drawing a line. Someone said. Reeves nodded slightly. So are we, but inside doubt crept in. How do you draw a line in water? For Lieutenant Malik, the message hit differently. It wasn't strategy. It was reality. She thought of her parents, watching the news, worrying. She thought of the fragile balance she had always tried to maintain between identities. What if this spirals? She whispered to a fellow officer. He didn't answer, because there was no good answer. Adil Khan, typing furiously now, felt the weight of responsibility. Words mattered. The way this story was told could shape perception, fear, even action. He paused mid-sentence. Am I reporting or amplifying? He murmured. He deleted a paragraph, then rewrote it. Slower, more careful, because truth in moments like this was as critical as any defense system. The subplots began to intertwine. Emily Carter reached out to an old contact, someone on the other side. Someone she had once trusted during quieter negotiations. Help me understand, she said over a secure line. What changed? A long pause, then quietly, nothing changed, that's the problem. Back at sea, Malik found herself staring again at the horizon. But this time she wasn't alone. Commander Reeves stood beside her. You ever think about how quickly things can go wrong? She asked. Reeves gave a faint, almost tired smile. Every day. And yet we're still here. Because sometimes, he said, being here is what keeps things from going wrong. She considered that. Maybe presence wasn't just power, maybe it was restraint. The climax didn't come with explosions, it came with a decision. A moment where multiple paths existed, and only one would be chosen. In Tehran, Vahidi was presented with options. Show force, escalate, or hold. In Washington, Emily Carter made one last push. A message, carefully worded, sent through backchannels. Not public. Not political. Human in the Gulf, Commander Reeves received new orders. Defensive posture. No provocation. For a long, suspended moment, the world waited. Then nothing happened. No strike, no clash. Just stillness, the kind that follows a storm that almost was. Days later, the headlines shifted. The tension remained, but something had changed. Not resolved, but understood. Adil Khan published his piece, not as a story of conflict, but of restraint. Lieutenant Malik wrote a message home telling her parents she was safe. Emily Carter sat in her office again, this time with a quiet sense of something regained. Not victory, but possibility. And General Vahidi, alone once more, allowed himself a rare exhale, because sometimes strength wasn't in reacting hard. Sometimes it was in choosing not to, and in that fragile space between action and restraint, the world had found, at least for now, a way to keep turning.